Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's Shadowwraith and today I'm going to be talking about 3 ways to run your Death Guard in 9th edition with the new codex. My first thoughts on this codex is it's fantastic. It is a lot better than I thought it would be. Yeah, I'm very happy with what we've got. Of course, we've got Mortar who's been buffed, a lot of things have been buffs and some nerfs in places. So without further ado, let's jump in to my number 3 slot, which is Boxwalkers. Now, right, before you say I'm crazy and all that stuff, oh, they've been nerfed or whatever, they haven't. They've been buffed, but they have got a restriction where you have to take some bubonic Astartes core for each squad you bring, which is fine, because I'm going to be bringing Terminators, I'm going to be bringing Plague Marines anyway. Okay, you can bring whatever you want alongside this. Remember, Plague Marines are 21 points a model, just standard with the Bolter. So they're not too crazy expensive, and you can run them in units of 5 to 10. So it's quite easy to squeeze these Poxwalkers in, because you can bring 20 for every 5, essentially, Plague Marines that you bring. Of course, you're going to want to bring Terminator stuff as well. But I just wanted to go over some of the shenanigans that you can play with Poxwalkers with this codex, because, you know, I'm going to mention Poxwalkers. So it only makes sense to bring the Harbingers, because you're going to be bringing Typhus anyway. He's not essential, but he makes them a lot tastier. Okay, the reason we're bringing the Harbingers is to gain access to their stratagem, the Wrathful Dead. Now, your Poxwalkers aren't core, so they're not going to be, getting many of the auras, but they will get this because it is dedicated for Harbinger Poxwalkers, and you get to re-roll the hit rolls in the fight phase. Absolutely fantastic, because we're hitting on 4+ no matter what now. With Typhus, he will buff your Poxwalkers, and I believe it's within 7 inches, or is it 6? It is 6 inches of him, and it buffs Poxwalkers to have +1 strength, so they're now strength 4 around him. He also comes with the Shamble Rot Contagion, Warlord Contagion, which basically, at the start of your opponent's movement phase, roll a d6 subtracting 1 if the enemy unit had the character keyword. On a 4+, they suffer 1 mortal wound. On a 6, they suffer D3 mortal wounds. Fantastic. On top of that, you've got his Host of the Destroyer Hive, which is in the command phase. You select one enemy unit within 6 inches and roll 1d6. On 2+, they suffer D3 mortal wounds. So if you roll a 4+ and a 2+, you can be chucking out a minimum of D3 plus 1 mortal wounds, potentially D3 plus D3 every time, which will hurt everything. It will hurt Custodians, it will hurt Marines, even if they have got transhuman physiology, because these are mortal wounds. That's absolutely fantastic. Plus, he's a beast in close combat with his Mastercrafted Man Reaper, being able to chuck out something ridiculous. 12 attacks with his Scythe profile. So, yeah, +1 strength, -1 damage. So he'll be strength 5, -1 to their toughness. So, yeah. If you really want to buff him to high heavens, you can stick Putrescent Vitality on him, popping him up to strength 6, toughness 6. But that means you're wounding Marine equivalents on 2s with a Plague Weapon. Yeah. So you'll be hitting on 2s, and you'll reroll. Well, you're not rerolling anymore because he's not core, but you're hitting on 2s anyway. And 2s to wound, rerolling 1s, -1 damage. You're going to want to pick up the Malignant Plague Caster with him as well, because he's a fantastic caster, and plus, thanks to the new rivalries rule where you can only bring one Lord of the Death Guard, so Typhus per detachment, you're going to need casters. Malignant Plague Caster is still the obvious choice, and he's still got his Pestilent Fallout. So when he successfully manifests a psychic power, and the result of the psychic power was a 7 or more, the closest enemy unit within 12 suffers 1 mortal wound. So, just the mortal wound output from 2 characters could potentially be D3 plus D3 plus 1. So, yeah. Per turn. And, to be fair, it could potentially be D3 plus D3 plus 2. So, yeah. Because the Malignant Playcaster can cast 2 spells. Fantastic. I would definitely suggest sticking a Putrescent Vitality on him. Giving him Miasma Pestilence is a fantastic one to get subtract 1 from the attacker's hit rolls against a friendly Death Guard unit, as well as Curse of the Leper, which pairs very nicely with the Contagion that you get for running Death Guard detachments, which is -1 toughness, and the aura increases each turn. So, you'll be wounding Marines on what, if it exceeds the result, so 4 pluses to deal mortal wounds to an enemy Marine unit. Crazy. With the potential of doing 7 So 76 you roll. Gift Contagion is also a fantastic spell to be chucking onto a marine equivalents. This is what I'm going off, marine equivalents, because they'll suddenly become strength 3 with no bonuses unless they've got special weapons. But the basic marines, they're strength 4, go down to strength 3, wounding your Poxwalkers on 5s. It's disgusting. You can make them wound on 5s anyway, but it's easier without spending, well, in case you don't get one spell off, you've got the other one to fall back on. And the only other thing that I can really suggest adding to make them really combat efficient is probably a Methodic Blight Hauler. So, the Methodic Blight Hauler is absolutely a fantastic unit still, because you've got access to the 1 command point ability or 2 if you have over 2 models in that unit, called Belching Fumes. So, you select that unit. Until the end of the phase, each time an enemy model makes an attack with a ranged weapon against that unit, reduce the number of attack made by that weapon by 1. So, that's pretty handy to stop them from getting shot down. So having them follow them around is fantastic. You don't have to, but the option is there. Now, the last command point I want to talk about that you can spend is only 1, and it's called Mutant Strain. So, basically, you stick it on a Poxwalker unit. Unmodified hit rolls of 6 inflict 1 mortal wound to the target in addition to any normal damage. Unmodified hit roll of a 1 inflicts 1 mortal wound to that Poxwalker until after the fight is resolved. So, if you've got a squad of 20, all piling in with 2 attacks each, okay, they're all hitting on 4s, but of course, you've got Typhus near them, and you have stuck Putrescent Vitality up on these Poxwalkers. So, they are now strength and toughness 5, okay? The enemy is -1 toughness, so we more care about the toughness in this situation than the strength, but it is still fantastic against toughness 5 units or tanks or anything like that. -1 toughness is always fantastic. But, moving on, we've got the Wrath of Dead on them, so they're rerolling to hit, so you've got 40 attacks coming from this squad. Hitting on 4s, because they're always hitting on 4s. Rerolling to hit. On top of that, each time they roll a 6 to hit, because they've got the Mutant Strain on them, of course, they inflict 1 mortal wound. So, yeah. You can imagine with a reroll, 6s, hitting on 4s with a reroll, 6s. Yeah, you're going to roll a few 6s. So you're chucking out a bunch of mortal wounds this way. And then on top of that, you're wounding most infantry on 3s with these Poxwalkers. Now, a side note, if you really, really want this thing dead by Poxwalker, you can pop a stratagem called Sickly Corrosion, okay? And you'll need someone with a plague weapon to initiate it. But essentially, if you, I think, just score a hit against that unit, the enemy unit, and they've got this stratagem on them, and it can be in the fight phase or the shooting phase, as long as it's plague weapons, and you can make bolters plague weapons, so it's quite easy to get this off. Everyone's re-rolling 1s to wound against them, as long as it's a death guard. So you could have your Poxwalkers wounding most things on 3s, re-rolling 1s to wound. And, yeah. So, yeah, the moral of the story is, if you're going against something with a 2-up save, the Poxwalkers aren't going to do too much against them, apart from chuck a million mortal wounds at them. On top of Typhus' ability, on top of the Malignant Plaguecaster's ability. So, yeah, and like I said, they're not going to be on their own, they're going to have Plague Marines supporting them and backing them up. Yeah, so, that is one way to run Poxwalkers. Plus, they got objectives secured, so still having a bunch of Poxwalkers is fantastic to sit on objective, because, of course, they've still got the 6+ kind of disgusting Resilient Shrug. There's no point mentioning disgusting Resilient, because it reduces 1 damage down to 1 damage, and they've only got 1 wound each. But the last little thing that I can mention is, you can still have the Foul Blight spawn with Revolting Stench Vats on him as a relic, if you so please. Because Typhus is not going to take a relic anyway. And he's got an aura of 6 inches, where enemy models, they don't count as charge, they don't count as having the strike first special rule, so your Poxwalkers will be going first, if they get charged. So there you have it. That is the combos for Poxwalkers that I can see at this moment in time. Let me know what you think in the description down below. Of course, you've got Smite as well to dish out mortal wounds, but it's a lot of mortal wounds, plus bogging people down, plus they're never going to run away, plus they got obsec. Now, on to the number 2 slot. Okay, and this is the Demon Engines. Demon Engines are absolutely insane. Now, the definite MVPs for this are the Plague Burst Crawlers, and of course the Footed Bloat Drones, okay? The Methodic Blight haulers are still fantastic, don't get me wrong, but these two that I just mentioned are absolutely phenomenal. Hellbrutes are also fantastic with a stratagem now. So, let's quickly go over what you can be running. Now, the Plague Company, you could run Poxmongers to give one of them a 4+ invulnerable save if you so wish with the Iron Clot Furnace. That got nerfed. But there are better ones in my opinion. So, for example, the Mortarian's Chosen Sons one is pretty... I don't like that one. What am I thinking of? Mortarian's Anvil. There we go. So if you've got Mortarian in your force and you can whack him up in the middle of the board or straight in front of the enemy, sure, he's going to get shot down, but you've got a bunch of demon engines for them to worry about as well. But they can't fire Overwatch whilst they're in his contagion range, which is always max 9 inches. Each time a model in that enemy unit makes a attack, the hit roll and the wound roll cannot be re-rolled. So that's also fantastic. So it can really stop them there. The last one I want to mention, give an honourable mention to, the Ferryman. Now, the Ferryman has a fantastic warlord trait called the Droning. So the Droning, basically, at the start of your move, the opponent's move phase, half the enemy's move characteristic until the end of the phase. So you can really slow them down if you wish. Absolutely fantastic. I love it. But let's move on. So, we've got the footed bloat drone. Now, the way you want to equip these bad boys is, in my opinion, you're going to give them the flesh mowers. So they're chucking out 12 attacks at strength 7. Okay, they're all hitting on 3s now. So you're hitting on 3s. You're going to be wounding on 2s, most marine equivalents. You will, actually, because you'll be strength 7 with this. They'll go down to toughness 3, and you're re-rolling 1s because of it being a plague weapon. You've also got the ability to use Dark Cravings on them for 1 command point. So it's in the opponent's charge phase. You select one of these bloat drones in your army until the end of the phase. If the unit is within 6 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically to any enemy units, you can perform a heroic intervention as if it was a character. When doing so, it can move up to 6 instead of 3. All other rules for heroic intervention still apply. That's fantastic. It means no one is safe anywhere near these guys. They're absolutely devastating. On top of that, if you start taking wounds, okay, you're tough as hell anyway. So you are still toughness 7. You've got your 3+ save. You ignore you downgrade everyone's damage by 1 to a minimum of 1. On top of that, you've got 5+ invulnerable save as well. So you're really hit, like, you're solid. And having 9 wounds is fantastic. But say something bad happens and you need to heal up, you just pop on Demonic Gluttony. Okay, 1 command point. You use it in the fight phase for a demon engine when you select into the fight. Until the end of the phase, each time an enemy model is destroyed by an attack made by that model, you regain a 1 lost wound to a maximum of 3. That's a third of your health each combat phase. Now, moving on to the Plague Burst Crawlers. Now, the Plague Burst Crawlers are absolutely crazy still. I still think they're going to be in every Death Guard list that I can see because they're absolutely bonkers. So, what's changed? The Entropy Cannon has been upgraded. It's still strength 8. It's 1 heavy 1, 36-inch range, -4 AP, D3 +3 damage plague weapon. Okay, but you've got the Plague Burst Mortar, 48-inch range, heavy D6, blast, strength 8, -2 damage. Yeah, it's a plague weapon still, and you don't need to have line of sight on the target. That's really good. But we've got Disgusting Force. So if they're all in some kind of like Death Star formation, you can pop around onto like this onto them. Use this stratagem in your shoot phase. When a Plague Burst Crawler from your model in the army is selected to shoot until the end of the phase, each time that model makes an attack with a Plague Burst Mortar, the attack has a damage characteristic of 3. Oof. After that model has shot, select one enemy unit that was hit by 1 or more attacks made by the Plague Burst Mortar by this model in this turn. Roll 1d6 for each unit within 3 inches. Each other unit, excluding Nurgle units, of course. If it's a 4+, they suffer a mortal wound. So you can do some proper blast damage with this bad boy. It is probably our best range anti-tank. Yeah, it is, without a doubt. It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Entropy cannons all the way. Don't get me wrong, Plague Spitters are still fantastic, but I can't get past the Entropy cannons. They're so good. Yeah, very good. And we still got Demonic Gluttony if we really need to use it. because it's just on any demon engine. And to be fair, it's not naff in combat. It is still weapon skill. I mean, it's weapon skill 6+, but still got 4 attacks, so you probably don't want to be in combat. But it's still good. Okay, strength 7 is nothing to sniff at. So, yeah, there we go. That's a quick kind of go over for these guys, and we're going to move on to the number 1 slot. So the number 1 slot is the Foot Sloggers. Okay, so we're talking Terminators and Plague Marines. Plague Marines are always going to be at the top. They're fantastic. And the Terminators just got infinitely better. Now, this list can kind of do it all. You can do close combat, you can do ranged. So you can equip your Plague Marines all with bolters if you wish, and that's one way to run it, or fully close combat. I will quickly cover both, because this video is going on for a bit. Now, the fellas you're going to want to bring with you on this is probably a Lord of Contagion, because they're fantastic. You need Tallyman, and you need the Plague Surgeon, okay? And optional, but definitely recommended, you want the Noxious Blight Bringer, okay? Foul Blight Spawn also. So you can use 3, you can bring 3 of them in 1 slot now, which is fantastic because of the new rules. So you only take up 1 elite slot. Yeah, and you're going to want to bring Plague Marines and Terminators. Now, let's quickly cover the Plague Marines. So, we'll quickly go over the combat build. What you can do is, if you've got the Tallyman, you're going to stick the Demon Toll on him, giving him a 6-inch aura of every 6 is exploding to hit, so counts as 2 hits. On top of that, he can pick a unit, as long as it's core, to get +1 to hit in combat. So, that's fantastic. Your Marines are now hitting on 2s. Rerolling 1s if they're near the Lord of Contagion, because they're core. Your Plague Marines are sitting pretty on 2 attacks each, but if you give them 2 of the Plague Knives, they got to 2 attacks each. So they got 3 attacks each, so they get an extra attack, 4 attacks for the Plague Champion. You don't want to give them all of Plague Knives. You want to give at least 1 or 2 either the Flail of Corruption or the Great Plague Cleaver. I'd probably suggest the Great Plague Cleaver if you're going to do what I'm going to do. So each time you attack, you subtract 1 from the hit rolls, so you get the +1 back from the Tallyman. Okay, and of course 6s count as an extra hit, so you can imagine what shenanigans that can cause. Right, you're going to stick Trench Fighters on these bad boys, so they get an extra attack with their Plague Knives. So you're going up to your basic Marines with Plague Knives, and now 4 attacks each, okay? Hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s. That's pretty crazy. Any 6 they roll explodes. So you spent 1 command point so far. If you spend, is it 4 command points? Yeah, 4 command points to do the ultimate wombo combo, which is Creeping Blight on top of that. So each time you roll a 6, an unmodified wound roll of a 6 with a Plague weapon, which Plague Knives are, and all your weapons are that I've suggested, that has an AP characteristic of -4. So you can imagine how much damage you can do with that many attacks. Yeah, running 10 of these boys. So yeah, you've got 40 attacks minimum. Okay, 40 attacks minimum if you use Trench Fighters. Yeah, slightly less because of the bigger weapons. But 6s explode, 6s are -4 AP. On top of that, you can stick Eternal Hatred on them because you're still strength 4. So let's drop those Space Marines to be wounded on 2s, re-rolling 1s, because Eternal Hatred is basically exactly the same as Veterans of the Long War used to be. +1 to the wound rolls. Fantastic. So we're wounding on 2s for Space Marine equivalents. That's absolutely bonkers. Yeah, you can be wounding vehicles on 4s as well. Yeah, just saying. It's pretty crazy. If they're toughness 8 or lower, you'll be wounding them on 4s with this combo. Yeah. Now, I'll quickly add in a honourable mention. The Lord of Vigilance is fantastic, probably better than the Lord of Contagion in this situation. So swap the Lord of Contagion out for the Lord of Vigilance. My mistake. Because he's got the Master of Destruction, where unmodified wound rolls of a 6 increase the AP by 1. So, yeah. Why not stick him instead? Plus, he's got an awesome spitter. Yeah. So, yeah. Or spewer, should I say. And he still lets you reroll 1s to hit. So you could be possibly -5 AP, which, yeah, nothing's getting a save against that, unless it's got an invuln. Now, why did I mention the Flail of Corruption and the Great Plague Cleaver? Well, I'll go over the Great Plague Cleaver, just to keep it simple. But, yeah, this is pretty crazy. With the Great Plague Cleaver, you are sat at 2 attacks, which isn't great, but it's strength ×2, so strength 8, so you'd be wounding everything on 2s, pretty much. That are infantry. and it's minus 3d6 damage. If you've got Haze of Corruption on there, the damage, extra damage, is not lost, it spills over. So if you roll a double 6 for both your attacks and do 12 damage, you're not killing 2 guys horrifically, you are doing 12 damage to that unit, so you're killing 6 Marines with 2 wounds. It goes well with the Flail of Corruption as well, because that's +1 strength, so you're going to strength 5. If you want, you can stick the Putrescent Vitality on them to make them strength 6, so you're wounding Marine equivalents on 2s. But you're hitting on 2s with the bonus. You're at minus 2 AP, and it is 2 damage per swing. But each time an attack is made with this weapon, make 2 hit rolls instead of 1. So you've got 4 attacks. 4 attacks with this thing. And you can still make the damage spill over, if you're not fighting 2 wound models. So, there you are. Now, onto the Terminators. Or actually, no, onto the shooty build. The really quick version of this is you still want Eternal Hatred, but you want to also use, probably just, to be safe, you're going to use sticking the Lord of Vigilance nearby them. So you're getting you're getting the reroll 1s. On top of that, you're also getting... apologies, it's only range for the Lord of Vigilance. Okay, even better, this is for the range. You're going to stick the Lord of Vigilance nearby them, so they're re-rolling 1s to hit, and any natural rolls of a 6 to wound is AP -1. You can give them Virulent Rounds, so they get Plague Weapons for their bolters. On top of that, if you've got someone who has the Arch Contaminator nearby you, and your target unit is within 12 inches of you, you can re-roll all failed wounds. So that's quite nice. And 6s are resolved at -1 AP. So that's the shooty kind of version with bolters. You can give them special weapons, but they've been nerfed to only have 1 special weapon per 5 men. So you can stick a couple of plasma guns in there if you so wish. Now moving on, we got the Blight Lord Terminators. Blight Lord Terminators are fantastic, and this goes for them as well, pretty much, because they're always rapid firing at 24 inches, so they're firing 4 shots each. You can give them Virulent Rounds, give them Plague Weapons near Arch Contaminator. If they're within 12 inches of the their target, then they're re-rolling all failed wounds, which is quite nice. All 6s, if you're near the Lord of Vigilance, are counted at -1 AP. On top of that, this goes for the Plague Marine shooty guys as well. Whap Eternal Hatred onto them, and add 1 to the attacker's wound rolls, so you're wounding everything pretty much on 3s, if it's not a tank. You'll be winning probably on 4s, especially if you get things in contagion range. So, there we have it. If you're going for the close combat build, the Blight Lord Terminators are very similar to them. You can stick the Putrescent Vitality on them to make them higher strength and toughness, but you really don't need to if you give them Bubonic Axes, which is what I suggest you do. Give your Blight Lord Bubonic Axes, which makes them strength 6, so when they're in combat with Space Marine equivalents at toughness 4, you're winning them on 2s because of your Contagion Aura. And you're re-rolling 1s. And you've got so many ways of dealing more damage. Like, again, as I mentioned before, you've got the Creeping Blight. You can stick Putrescent Vitality if you want on them, and you've got Haze of Corruption if you've got multi-damage weapons. So there you go. You want the Tallyman nearby, so you've got the Exploding 6s. And +1 to hit. So yeah, you're hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, wounding Marine equivalents on 2s, re-rolling 1s, possibly at -4 AP, otherwise it would be -1 damage. Now this is where we get into the juicy stuff, okay? We are going to be talking about the Death Shroud Terminators. I absolutely love these. I think these are probably the best models in the game for me, because they look amazing and are awesome. So, I'll mention the Plague Surgeon now with these guys, okay? So, the Plague Surgeon is fantastic with Terminators because they're multiple wounds. They're good. He's really good for Marines because if they're within 3 inches of him, they get 6 up shrug. So, it's kind of like Disgusting Resilient. Plus, you're -1 damage. So, 2 damage weapons are going down to 1 with a possibility of just being shrugged on a 6. That's fantastic. But the Plague Surgeon works really good with Terminators who now have 3 wounds each because he can... well, as long as they're within 3 inches of them, each time a model in that unit loses a wound, you roll a d6. 6, wound is not lost. On top of that, a model within 3 inches of him can regain d3 lost wound. It can only be affected once per turn, but it's at the end of your movement phase, so you can heal your units back up. And it works better, obviously, with more wounds, because I mean you can heal Plague Marine, but the max you're going to get 1 wound back, or you can get a potential of 2 with this guy and your Terminators. The Tallyman is self-explanatory. I already went over him, as well as the Bellboy, as I call him. He is the Noxious Blightbringer, so he's fantastic because he gives you +1 to your move or advance rolls until the end of the phase. So yeah, as long as you're core, you get that. It's really good. It's really, really good. Now, Deshroud Terminators. What is the deal with these guys? Well, they got 4 attacks base now, 5 attacks for the champion. You've got the Man Reaper, which is +3 strength, so you're 4, 5, 6, 7. Strength 7. Okay, that's fantastic because your Wound Marine equivalents are 2s. Because of your Contagion ability. It's -3 AP if you use the Cleave. This is the Cleave profile. Okay, and it's 2 damage a pop, but you subtract 1 from the hit rolls. But you can still be hitting on 2s because you've got the Tallyman nearby, giving them +1 to hit. So they're still hitting on 2s. Now, you can give them the Scythe profile. You double their attacks, so they're now chucking out 8 attacks each. 10 attacks for the Deshroud champion. +1 strength, so they are strength 5. But if you give them Putrescent Vitality, they'll be strength 6, so the Wounding Marine equivalents on 2s. Or, if you're fighting something bigger, or you've got a ton of CP, you can just stick the Veterans of the Long War. So I think it's Eternal Hatred it's called, for 1 CP, so +1 to wound rolls. Very good against vehicles and tougher enemies. But, there we go. The reason these guys are so fantastic is because now the champions, all champions can take the deadly pathogens. Okay? So, you can have your Blight, Deshroud Terminator, have the Virulent Fever, which I quite like, because each time an attack is made with this weapon, an unmodified wound roll of 6 inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target in addition to normal damage. Next to the Tallyman, 6s are now exploding because he's got the Demon Toll, so they count as 2 hits plus you're dealing a mortal wound each time. On top of that, if you're using the Scythe ability, you can stick Creeping Blight on them. So, yeah. If you roll a unmodified wound roll of 6, it's -4 AP, because instead of being -4, it's now -1, it's -4 for 6s. Yeah, with exploding 6s, your champion 6s deal mortal wounds. You can be +1 to wound. You're usually 2s wounding marines, re-rolling 1s. It gets pretty crazy. Now there we have it. They're my 3 ways to run them. There's way more ways to run them if you want. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of these. If you liked a particular one, the reason this is a very quick overview of them, there are more ways to enhance these builds, but I didn't want a 2-hour long video. So if you want me to go more in depth in a particular build, do let me know in the comment section down below and I will do so. Okay? If you like the video, do consider liking, and if you're feeling especially sensitive today, do consider subscribing. But even if you don't do either of those things, I still hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.